Call.
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Mr. Rivera? Mr. Still?
Here.
Ms. LaFrance? Here. Mr. Trainee?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Mr. Croft? Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Ms. Demboski?
Present.
Mr. Dyson?
Here.
Chair Trainee, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Steele, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please, sir? I want to thank all the Assembly members for showing up tonight, because we met last week, so it's double duty. It's good to see you tonight. Minutes of previous meetings. Mr. Dunbar, I'll need a motion to approve the minutes. That's the minutes of January 9, 2018, January 19, 2018, and January 23, 2018.
Move to combine the minutes and pass the minutes.
Who did second? Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any objection to approval of the minutes? Madam Clerk, those minutes are approved by the body. Administration's report. Mr. Mayor?
Nothing that you haven't seen elsewhere or will not see elsewhere. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Assembly Chair's report. I was here last night, and the Mayor was speaking on the purchase of ML&P by Chugach. And if you weren't here last night, I suggest you go to muni.org, muni.org. Right-hand side, there's a link down there to everything you want to know and more than you need to know about the sale of ML&P. Because a lot of people get their information off the internet. So I appreciate the administration for putting that out there. I was out there on the way here to make sure it was working, and it is. So if you want to know everything you ever wanted to know about ML&P, it's out there. And I've asked our vote-by-mail expert, Carolyn, to come up here for a second. Could you tell us how vote-by-mail is going, ma'am? You can take that microphone.
Thank you. My name is Carolyn Hall. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Vote by Mail project. I am not an expert on Vote by Mail, but an expert on the education and outreach of Vote by Mail. And I'm very, very thankful to be here. And thank you for the invitation, Chair Trainee. I do appreciate it. And I'm also very excited to be in be a part of this historic moment in Anchorage's history. So ballot packages are going to be mailed out a week from today. That's March 13th. And at that point, if we are anticipating that all of qualified registered voters should be receiving their ballots in the mail by the 19th, which is Monday, March 19th. If for some reason you do not receive your ballot in the mail, or if you lose your ballot, or if you find that it is damaged in any way, we ask you to call the voter hotline, which is 907-243-VOTE, which is 243-8683. And you can request a replacement ballot. Another way that you can request a replacement ballot is by visiting one of the 5 accessible vote centers, and those open on March 26th. Vote by mail is as easy as 1, 2, 3. You'll be receiving your ballot in the mail. You will mark your ballot and use your trusted resources to make your selection. Once you make that choice, you put your ballot into the security sleeve, which protects your voter privacy and your voted ballot. After that, you put the security sleeve into the ballot return envelope. You seal the ballot return envelope, and then on the back of it, you sign your signature. And we request that you sign with your official signature, like you would sign a legal document. No grocery store signatures. And it's really important that voters sign the back of the ballot return envelope, because that is how we verify that voters are who they say they are. Once that is done, there are 3 ways to return a ballot. One is by using a stamp, a first-class stamp, and mailing it through the United States Post Office. If a voter would like to save the postage, they may bring their return envelope to one of 12 one of 12 secure drop boxes. There are 2 secure drop boxes in each assembly district. And then the third way is by bringing the return envelope to one of the 5 accessible vote centers. And all of this information is on our website, which is muni.org/elections. We also have 2 upcoming public tours at the MOA Election Center, which is located at 619 East Ship Creek Avenue at Door D, which is on the east side of the building. And those tour dates are March 12th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. and March 29th from noon to 1 p.m. That is all.
Any questions from Assembly members? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Sorry, John, you have a question, sir? I'm sorry, I didn't say
I
it.
could ask a question, or maybe Suzanne, do you want to mention your email? Well, so we got an email, I guess someone had asked Suzanne, and then we got some emails on it, that you can also vote by email and by fax, similar to like when you were people who voted absentee, like if they're out of state or something. So that's 2 other ways to vote, correct?
Correct, yes. And those voters who wish to choose to vote by email or vote by fax, they need to contact the clerk's office, and they need to be filling out an application in order to do so. And the deadline for that is March 27th.
Okay, and that's not really new. That's something we've been doing for a number of years.
Correct. That is not new. That is something that we've been doing for a very long time.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Other questions from Assembly members? Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Next item of business is committee reports. Mr. Whittleton, I'll start with you, sir.
The Community and Economic Development Committee met on Thursday with a very light agenda, 1 marijuana application, which we will discuss later today.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just an announcement for the Enterprise Committee. The meeting was canceled for Thursday, and so the next meeting will be in April.
Thank you. Melissa France, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to report.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Peterson, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Ethics and Elections Committee met on February 28th, and we got an update on our readiness for the upcoming vote-by-mail election, and had a discussion about how to get the word out to the public for outreach and education to the public about our new vote-by-mail system. And I believe we're all ready to go, and so the ballots will be in the mail a week from today. So we're on the cusp of a new thing here in Anchorage, vote by mail.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Constant, sir.
Nothing for me. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I just have one disclosure to make. Item 9, Echo 2, it's just an informational report, but it does have to do with the fire department, specifically the fire prevention department, so I don't believe I have a conflict, but my
Not
husband...
informational memorandum, ma'am. I don't, sure rules you don't have a conflict of
Thank
interest
you.
on that. Thank you for telling us about it. Yes, sir. Mr. Dyson.
Yeah, thank you. In your packet should be a copy of the latest audit. It has to do with the building inspection fees. I commend it to you. It shows that there are problems, but they're kind of normal sorts of things that kind of fall through the cracks with very busy people. And I suspect that the management administration there will take care of it. I thought it was very well done audit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Having a problem with our little call-in system.
Amy's in the queue.
Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I missed one. There's a late at the table item 9B5. It's AR number 2018-76. It's a resolution regarding support of Senate Bill 212 that would create a new defined benefit pension plan for state and municipal peace officers and firefighters. My husband would not be affected by this particular bill, but he is a member of IAFF Local 1264 and a firefighter here at the municipality.
Thank you for bringing that up to us. I understand that, and because he's not a new member coming in, this would not affect him. He's under an older system. Probably a lot wish they had his system.
I'm sure they do.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're now down to addendum to the agenda. Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll need a motion to incorporate the addendum to the agenda and lay it on the table items. if
Move
you
to
would.
incorporate the addendum to the agenda and lay it on the table items.
Is there a second? You want to go ahead and read them?
Yes. Item 9A2, resolution number AR 2018-72, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly congratulating Tom and Ruth Niswander, recipients of the 2018 Shining Lights Award. Assembly Vice Chair Dunbar, Assembly Chair Trainee, Assembly Members Constant, Croft, Dombrowski, Dyson, LaFrance, Peterson, Rivera, Steele, Weddleton, and Mayor Berkowitz. Item 9B4, Resolution Number AR 2018-73, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly appointing a citizen naming panel for the purposes of naming the South Central Enforcement Tactical Range and Training Facility. Assembly Chair Trainee. 9D, New Business. 9D5, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 167, 2018, sole source purchase from Anchorage Daily News to provide advertising for the 2018 April election for the Municipality of Anchorage, Office of the Municipal Clerk, OMC, $35,000, Purchasing Department. Item 9D6, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 168, 2018, Budget Advisory Commission appointment, Jedediah R. Smith, Mayor's Office. Item 9D7, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 169, 2018, Public Transit Advisory Board appointment, Doug Miller, Mayor's Office. Item 9D8, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 170, 2018, Valley View Limited Road Service Area, LRSA, Board of Supervisors appointment, Andrew R. Ming, Mayor's Office. Item 9F10, Assembly Memorandum Number AM 166, 2018, Board of Adjustment appointment, Bernd C. Gutschow, Mayor's Office. Public comment 3/20/2018. Laid on the table item number item 9B5, AR number 2018-76, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly in support of Senate Bill 212, an act that would create a new defined benefit pension option for the state municipal peace officers and firefighters and the public employees retirement system of Alaska, with protections for the state against unforeseen future liabilities. Assembly Member Constant, Assembly Chair Trainee, and Assembly Vice Chair Dunbar. That's all.
Thank you. Ask unanimous consent of the addendum to the agenda. Seeing no objections, Madam Clerk, we've amended the addendum to the agenda. We're now in front of the consent agenda. As amended, I'll need a motion to approve that in a second. Then we'll go through and pull off a few items if we want.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. A second? Got a second? Got that, Madam Clerk? Okay. We're now going to go back to those items for a little further discussion. Mr. Wilton, we'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thanks. I'd like to pull 9B2 and 9B5.
9B2 and 9B5?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rivera, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No item to pull tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Steele, sir.
No items, Mr. Chair.
Mr. France, ma'am.
No items, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dunbar.
9A2.
You pulled 9A2. Okay. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No items this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Constant.
None, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dombrowski.
Can I just verify, Mr. Weddleton pulled 9 Bravo 5? Okay. And then I would like to pull item 9 Delta 4.
9 Delta 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was pulled. Mr. Dyson, sir.
Nothing.
Okay. Administration, anything you guys need pulled for any reason?
Mr. Chair, did anyone pull 9A1 for reading?
No.
Well, I would encourage someone.
Mr. Peterson wants to pull 9A1. Thank you, Mr. Falsey. Okay, we have pulled item 9A1, item 9A2, item 9B2, item 9B5, item 9D4. Madam Clerk, is that all you've got? Okay. Let's bring it up for voting then on the balanced consent agenda. Please vote. Mr. Dyson, sir, we need you to vote. Thank you, Mr. Dyson, sir.
What am I doing wrong?
That's approved unanimously by the body. We're now going to go back to those items we'll pull for a little further discussion. The first item that was pulled was item 9A1, and that's Resolution AR 2018-71, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing the accomplishments of the Anchorage High School students in the 2018 ASAA First National Bank Drama Debate and Forensic State Championship and National Speech and Debate Education Day. That was pulled by you, Mr. Peterson.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ask unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, that's approved. Who is reading and who's presenting? Do we know?
I'm reading.
Okay. Who's here to receive it?
Or just go down there and see if he'll come down.
Any winners out there?
Mr. Chair, our ombudsman's staff, May, is here with her family and her, I think it's your cousin? My niece. Your niece? Her niece is one of the awardees. So.
There you go, Mr. France.
All right. This is AR number
Welcome to the meeting.
2018-71, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and celebrating the accomplishments of Anchorage High School students at the 2018 Drama, Debate, and Forensic State Championships. Whereas across our country, students, schools, and future employers appreciate the civic value of competitive public speaking on National Speech and Debate Education Day, which was recognized this year on March 2nd, 2018. And whereas, in that competitive spirit, the 2018 Alaska State Activities Association First National Bank Drama, Debate, and Forensic State Championships were hosted by the UAA Wolf Debate Program and the Anchorage School District on February 22nd through the 24th, 2018 at East Anchorage High School, where nearly 200 students from 20 high schools across the state of Alaska competed across 17 events. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly resolves to recognize the Anchorage students who earned the status of Alaska State Champion. Olivia Taft's West High School Public Forum Debate. Natalie Frazier, West High School Public Forum Debate. Madison Zhang, Bartlett High School, Lincoln Douglas Debate. Nick Jurjevic and Scott Santela, West High School Policy Debate. Sarah Cohen and Rachel Shaw Rosenbaum. Sarah Chen and Rachel Shaw Rosenbaum, West High School Policy Debate. Blake Steeren, Service High School, World Schools Debate. Jacob Hirsch, Service High School, World Schools Debate. Richard York, Service High School, World Schools Debate. Hiroja Jawara, Diamond High School, Domestic Extemporaneous Speaking. Janpal Lachapelle, West High School, Foreign Extemporaneous Speaking. Dale Slater, South High School, Extemporaneous Commentary. Xavier Love, Bartlett High School, Dramatic Interpretation of Literature. Nathan Ford and Dale Slater, South High School, Dual Interpretation of Literature. Jacob Hirsch and Aaron Jenkins, Surface High School, Duet Acting. Zach Wilderson, South High School, Pantomime. Declan Gass, South High School, Pantomime. And to congratulate Kelly Corrigan, Service High School, 2018 DDF Coach of the Year, and Aaron Jenkins, Service High School, 2018 DDF Student of the Year. And to celebrate the hard work and accomplishments of all the Anchorage student competitors and their coaches, developing the next generation of Alaska's civic leaders. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 6th day of March, 2018.
Who's going to speak?
You are. They spoke in competitions.
You need to posit a question to get them to start chiming in.
None of the winners are going to introduce themselves?
An extemporaneous speaker or commenter?
They're so excited.
Still so shocked.
That's okay.
Here we go.
We have a winner.
We got one coming back. Introduce yourself to us, if you would.
Hello, I'm Natalie Fraser.
I guess I'm here to answer your questions about what DDF is or to extemporaneously comment on anything.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
when I was approximately the same age as this young lady,
that was 18 what?
yeah, that was back in the previous century. I was a member of our state debate and contest, state speech contest, and actually got to travel across my home state of Iowa a couple of times competing in events. Unfortunately, never won the state championship. So congratulations on coming out on top.
Thank you, and thank you for your recognition.
I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
What does it mean to be a state champion in public forum debate?
Okay, so first there's 3 forms of debate. There's Lincoln Douglas, there's public forum, and then there's policy. And each is meant to kind of focus on a different aspect. For example, Lincoln Douglas is a moral debate, and this year's resolution was on plea bargaining and whether or not that should be abolished. Policy focuses, it's a year-long topic, and it focuses on developing a plan to enact within the government. And so this year's resolution was whether or not the U.S. federal government should increase funding or regulation for education. And then my format, public forum, is designed to be really accessible to the public, and so we have shorter speech times, and our resolution was whether or not the United States government should abolish the capital gains tax.
And so, your answer was?
So my answer is to be a champion of public forum debate means that I spent a very long time talking about taxes to people.
All right, let me reframe the question.
You don't get to do that.
What was your conclusion in your debate that was successful?
What do you mean?
If you were debating on the capital gains tax and you were the champion, you had a position.
Actually, in debate, we're trained to debate both sides of the resolution, so I did both pro and con. Personally, I don't feel like we should abolish the capital gains tax, and the argument I used would be focusing on income inequality, right, and like comparing economic growth with income inequality and the harms of those.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Dunn, sorry. John is, okay, Mr. Whittleton.
Well, just while they're here, we have only 2 items for public hearing this evening, but I challenge you to read them, learn about them. You'll have 3 minutes to pick a side and talk about it.
That's longer than I intend this meeting to last. Mr. Whittleton, sir, sorry, I already talked to you. Mr. Dunbar, sir, you pulled item 9A2.
Yeah, our
Do you wanna move
clerk
to
forwarded.
approve?
No, I'd like to move to postpone indefinitely.
Okay.
I intend to
introduce a substitute version and pass it on the 20th when they can attend.
Is there a
Second.
Any objection to that? Seeing none, we postpone that indefinitely.
Thank you.
Hope you'll bring it back, sir. Appreciate it. Next item was pulled is item 9B2.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, you know, this kind of jumped out. We have a lot of things that jump out here when you go through the agenda, but here's $10,000 transfer one fund to another. But when you read it, it is about a prize that people at Animal Control won for the story of Linus, who is in front of us, and Sue, who adopted him. And I got to tell the world, I am simply not a cat person. But I tell you, I was so touched by this story. It was amazing. And I also think that, you know, in a world where people are very cynical about public employees and that and the value of their work, here is a tremendous example of people going well beyond writing this story, living, really loving what they do, and then winning $10,000 that will go towards their mission at Animal Control. So it reflects very well on our public employees in Anchorage, and also on Sue and Linus. So thank you. And
Other questions from Assembly members? So tell us all about Linus.
Sure. Okay, my name is Laura Atwood. I am not privileged to be Linus's mom, but I do get to be Linus's friend because I'm Sue's coworker. So Linus came in as a stray kitten. She was left in our night drop kennel, and she had problems with both of her eyes. It was very apparent, and I know you all saw that picture from her blog post. So Sue fostered her. Sue has fostered probably hundreds of kittens and brought all of those kittens back to then be adopted and go on into new homes. But something about this kitten struck Sue, and she actually brought Linus back to be adopted. But then when it actually came down to it, it said, no, I can't let go of this one. So she kept Linus. Linus is now her very own cat. And me, being the PR person, took advantage of that and said, awesome, Linus is going to be our spokescat. So Linus now makes regular appearances on our Facebook page to encourage adoptions, talk about cat behavior to help people keep cats in their home if they're having difficulty with their cats. And people love her. My best posts have Linus in them. So we really appreciate being recognized for this. And yeah, how much, Sue and Linus mean to our community. Thank you very much.
Question from some members. Chris.
My only question, just comment. I spend a lot of time with dog rescues, and I think the title for what you are, it's the best kind of failure. It's a foster failure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question from some members? Ask unanimous consent on this. Hearing no objection, Madam Clerk, that is approved by the body. And thank you very much for all your efforts in bringing Linus forward and the publicity you've got for it. It helps everybody that wants to adopt a cat to get the publicity out there. What's easier to have adopted, a cat or a dog? Which moves faster?
Dogs. Dogs can
move
literally be adopted within hours of going on the adoption floor. In the meantime, cats, sometimes we'll have cats that may take a couple months to find a home.
Well, thank you very much. Keep up the good effort.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, everyone.
I like the carrier. I did too. The next item I pulled was item 9B2. Mr. Whittleton, you pulled that one.
I guess move to approve.
5, sir, 9B5.
We already did that one. It was 9B5. Sorry, Mr. Whittleton, you pulled that one too.
So I'll move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Whittleton?
Well, we got this sort of late in the game this evening, so I have some thoughts on it. And I kind of understand the, I don't know, does the public know what this is? Is it up?
It's been read.
Okay, then you read it in. Okay. Basically get a defined benefit, return to a defined benefit pension plan, I think, for public safety employees throughout the state, and to support an action in the Senate and, I guess, state legislature to move that forward. And I understand there are benefits to this, but, I have a hard time supporting this bill at this point. I think a number of reasons. Looking at how much will it cost? I mean, we just recently have dealt with the police and fire pension fund that was ended, and we got to pay for that, and we had sold these certificates of participation, and it has been a huge burden, a $10 million a year burden on the city to pay for that. And I know when they started it, no one expected that. And when we do things like this, I'm very careful that we're not writing a blank check. There's some things in this, they're taking out medical. It's not part of this, and that's what really got us on, I think the previous pension plans. But, there's no fiscal note with this. I looked online, I looked at what this, is in play, and they said, well, we have to wait for the actuaries to tell us. So while the general concept sounds good, retaining employees in these critical positions, but without knowing what we're getting into, I just can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Whittleton. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm one of the co-sponsors of this resolution, and I recognize, as Mr. Whittleton hinted at, that the process was a little irregular. This came a little bit late in the game, and for that I apologize. It had to do with the movement down in Juneau. I think I was fairly surprised that the Senate President Pete Kelly was willing to bring this forward, given the ideological differences between myself and Mr. Kelly. I also am cognizant that we don't usually pass these kind of resolutions. And one of my first memories on this body was Ms. Dombosky and I believe Mr. Evans talking about a resolution that was basically too political, and we don't usually do this. What's that? And Mr. Flynn as well. And so I am hesitant to do things like this. However, this issue is sufficiently important, and moreover, it's sufficiently directly connected to the finances that we oversee that I was willing to do so. Also, our legislative program has already gone out the door, and now Mr. Kelly, Senator Kelly, is acting on this. So given those fairly extraordinary circumstances, I was willing to support this. The merits of it, I think, are fairly clear. We are spending a lot of money recruiting and trying to retain police officers and firefighters, and the current pension system we have now is very portable, and it causes us to do a lot of training and then lose folks to places like Denver and San Diego and Portland and other places where it might be a little more pleasant to be a public safety officer, and perhaps they can offer a more generous compensation package. So I urge approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dombosky, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm not going to break from my tradition. I won't be supporting this, but it might shock people to know that I'm actually inclined to support this particular piece of legislation. However, I make it a general rule that I don't vote yes for something that I haven't actually read. I just find it's better policy to read it first. I have had the opportunity to talk to multiple police officers, and specifically where I think this might have a benefit is with the Alaska State Troopers and their ability to retain and hire. But Mr. Weddleton hit the nail on the head. When we're talking about a state law, that's what we're talking about. Number one, especially when it comes to pensions, we have to look at the actuaries. And there are none, which means we can't know a fiscal note. Not only that, this was just laid on the table tonight. So yes, I've read some of the summaries about it, but I've not read the actual bill. And I just think it's bad policy. But again, this is a very unusual step. And if the Assembly is going to delve into the realm of Alaska State Legislature bills that are before them, you should have the full process, which means they have to be vetted in committee and you have to have public hearings. Other than that, it's just 11 people's opinion on something they may or may not have read. And I think that's just a bad trend. So my vote tonight is not a reflection on whether I support the bill or not. For me personally, the jury's still out. I think my responsibility is to read the bill, talk to all the experts I can, watch as many hearings on it as I can, and understand it before I weigh in with my personal opinion. And that's what I expect to do. But I will not be supporting it tonight because, frankly, I don't think when it comes to the state's finances, we should fly by the seat of our pants.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gates.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard, I think, Mr. Weddleton say there was no fiscal note attached, and there is actually a fiscal note to this bill from the legislature's website. So just a point of information. There was one that was blank saying they're waiting for an actuarial estimate. There was a second one from the Department of Administration. On the state's website, there's none under the fiscal notes tab, but under the documents tab, they have two fiscal notes. So one says for FY 2019 is $850,000 appropriation, and in the next 5 years, I guess $106,000. But, you know, I don't want to read out a fiscal note here at this moment, but I just want to inform you that there is one.
Well, that's a point of order, if I could.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilton.
You know, thank you for that. I did download, they do have two, but I think the real meat of it is the actuarial report, and that is not available. The other one just speaks to, I think, their administrative costs. Just
Thank
actually
you.
running the thing.
Mr. Constant.
I'm gonna wait. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wilton, anything else? And then we go to Mr. Dyson. I'm going to comment at the end, so.
Well, you know, I mean, I could offer an amendment that would maybe help. You want me to wait till comments, or?
If you want to wait for a minute, let me get the rest of the comments through. Mr. Dyson, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I both agree and appreciate all the comments that have been made here. In the years I've been in a policy-making position like this, I've seen what it's like to overpromise things. I think during the years when I joined the legislature, the PERS, TERS, teachers and public employees retirement thing was something like 28 billion upside down. And slowly but surely, and I think during the years that some of my colleagues were there, we paid it down 10 or 15 and so on. But my position always was that the employees need to be exposed to the risk just like the rest of the citizens are. And boy, the people that had Tier 1 and Tier 2 retirement packages, it was unaffordable probably when it was instituted and profoundly afterwards. And so I'm reluctant to do that. I want employees to, like all the rest of us in the private sector, to, experience the risk up and down and so on. But on the other side, our police officers assume a risk, and our firefighters that none of the rest of us civilians do, and that makes me inclined. The only possible reason I would give this credibility is that it comes from Pete Kelly. And Mr. Dunbar was right. And so it has credibility because of that. The facts are we're losing very valuable employees where experience and training is really necessary. Any manager knows that you can tell if your salary and benefits program is sufficient is every time you open the door for new employees, there's a long line out the door. And you also look at the turnover rate, and both those show that there needs to be a change. So anyways, I appreciate this coming forward. I look forward to Mr. Weddleston's amendment.
It's pretty lame.
Thank you, Mr. Dyson.
Mr. Trainee.
Thank you. I intend to support this. I've been here a long time in this state, and I remember we used to have a defined benefit for police and fire, and when that went away, it's hard for us to attract people into police and fire, whether it's the state or the city. And they do put their lives on the line every day. They put the uniform on and go out there. They don't know if they're going to come home. Their families don't know if they're going to come home. It's hard to attract people up here. The new retirement system we have, quite frankly, attracts nobody. I remember we had 837 here. Remember, for those that were on the body, remember what happened there? We had police officers taking their retirement and walking out of Anchorage. It's been hard to get the police force built back up. This is a vehicle to build the police force back up in the fire department, both city and state. This needs to be passed. Hopefully, Kelly will have the ability to get this through Juneau. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. Mr. Weddleton.
Well, I don't want to disappoint Mr. Dyson, I think, because I don't have much of an amendment here, but part of it is just a fear of saying we support a certain bill in the legislature, because what it is today doesn't mean that's what it is tomorrow. These things change extremely quickly. But I do think this resolution highlights some issues with staffing and so on. So if we simply deleted on the now therefore, so line 36, deleted and encourages the Alaska legislature to pass SB 212. So basically we're saying, hey, you're looking at something important, and cheer them on.
So where would you, on line 36, where would you make that change at, right after firefighters?
Right. So delete everything after that.
And the comma, change it to period?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I have.
Mr. Dunbar?
Yeah, I think I oppose that amendment. I appreciate its spirit, but I think it it's sufficiently large that it kind of obviates the meaning of the resolution. I mean, the resolution is a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly in support of Senate Bill 212.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And then at the end, you take that out, and so you kind of undo the title and the purpose. So I know what you're trying to do, and I agree with you that we're endorsing something now that after the sausage making of the legislative process could look very different. But I think that they are, as Mr. Trainee just whispered to me, smart enough to figure that out. And this is a non-binding resolution, so I think that I would. For that reason, I'm going to oppose the amendment.
You know, I think I'd have to withdraw it if I can, if only because I wasn't thinking if it's in the title, we can't take it out of the title, and if it's in there, then my change is kind of.
I don't agree with you that.
Did you withdraw your amendment?
I would withdraw, yeah.
You withdraw it? Okay. Chris, do you want to make it again?
No, I just think that it doesn't, because it's laced throughout. SB 212 is clearly in the document. It doesn't. Yeah.
Why don't you just let it go, Chris? Let's vote on this thing unamended. Let's see where the votes take us. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, please bring it up for a vote. It may not be unanimous. Let's bring it up. Please vote. That was approved 8-2. 8-2. Is that thing going up on the screen anymore?
It was earlier. This is the first time it hasn't.
Okay. The vote was 8-2 because we have one member that's absent, so it's 10 votes total.
Who's missing?
What? Oh, that's all right. He already sold that to him. Anyway, that was approved by the body. Next item was pulled is item 9D4.
I know.
It was pulled by Ms. Dombrowski.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved to second, Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question to the administration. I'm trying to understand if you're changing how you're presenting these or what's going on, because it says that two of the appointments, specifically the chair who's here now, Nick Danger, and Lauren Lehman, are to replace a vacancy, but they're actually reappointments. So are we changing anything? What is the status of this particular commission? Are we staffed up? I'm just a little confused with how it's presented.
Jason Bakken said, through the chair, after 120 days, they are no longer on the commission, so they actually would be filling a vacancy, and that's actually what has happened, is they expired actually prior to October 14th, 2017, so they actually were in a vacant seat.
So basically, we didn't get their reappointments done quick enough, so the terms expired, is what you're
Correct.
telling me.
Correct.
So what is the status? Because this particular commission has struggled with filling their vacancies, so how many more do we have on this commission? Where are we at?
We have one that is still on the commission until October 14th, 2018, and we have these four tonight, and then there will be four additional ones that we hope to have on the next assembly agenda.
Fantastic, and there's 9 on this commission, right?
Correct.
Oh, great, so this one's staffed up. Can you tell me, just in general, are there any other commissions that you're having challenges staffing, or are there any that have longstanding staffing vacancies that we haven't gotten to yet?
There are a number. I'd have to go back and check.
Could you give us a rundown
sure.
at the next assembly meeting? That would be super helpful, just because I have had, and I've actually seen a number of the Eagle River people come through in the last couple months, so I think that kink's been worked out, but I've had a number of people make comments to me over the last year and a half, so I just want to kind of get a status, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, two things. Jason, one, just, you don't have to come up, but I was in conversation with another commission membership, and it was surprising to me that they had a meeting, and 2 days prior to the meeting, they didn't have an agenda, and some of the members were concerned. And so it might be smart to do some kind of commission training or some kind of communication with the various memberships and staff people for commissions that, hey, this is how we operate, because 2 days probably isn't enough for the public to know what's going on. So now back to the item before us. I contemplated taking an individual and bifurcating them out and voting against their nomination, but in speaking with my fellow member on the body here, and the idea that it's better to have diversity of thought than to just try to make a point or kind of be oppositional, I think I'm going to support the nomination of Warren Lehman, even though for years I have struggled with some of his positions that are very personal to me and personal to people that are in the room. And so I am going to support it, but I just had to put that on the record.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilton, sir.
You know, because it was brought up, you know, I'm always impressed with the quality of the people who volunteer time for these boards and commissions, and we have hundreds of, I think it's like 600 seats on boards and commissions. It's incredible. This one in particular is we've discussed it and kind of we're thinking about sunsetting and got rid of it, and now we're reinvigorating it under Ms. Domboski's guidance, or I guess you're kind of part of it. We have some really high-quality people who have been super involved with the community and sitting on here, and I look forward to sending them some work and seeing what they come up with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there no other questions or comments? Please bring it up for a vote, Madam Clerk. It was working. Please vote. Vote was 9-0. That was approved by the body. That completes those items that were pulled for further discussion. We're now down to parents' requests. We can start that at 5:30. It's 5:40. So is David Pease here? You want to talk to us about crime in Anchorage, apparent lack of police response? You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name, if you would, for our clerks.
David Pease, P-E-A-S-E.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I've lived here quite a long time. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm concerned about lack of response to crime in general, but particularly property crime. And I think that something needs to be addressed by somebody. My family's been the victim of vehicle break-in twice in the past year on both occasions. It occurred on a commercial premises. There was videotape taken, and we filed police reports, and the videotape was turned over to the police department. After the first incident, no action was taken. After the second incident, I contacted the police department and said, what's going on with this case? And the sergeant said, nothing, sir. I said, what? He said, we do not have any officers assigned to investigate property crime in this city. I said, oh, really? He said, well, that's not entirely true. He said, sometimes if we get an officer on light duty, he's assigned to investigate property crimes, but he's investigating property crimes from 2016. But the department will not assign anybody to investigate property crimes. He said, we're frustrated. There are those of us that want to put bad guys away, and we're willing to do it. We don't have anyone to investigate property crime. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. And he said, please do so. So I've done some checking around, and I found out that that is the case. There apparently is no one assigned to investigate property crimes. I have a friend who was coaching one of my boys. Someone backed into his garage, loaded up his entire household into a U-Haul while he was not there, and stole all his stuff. He called up about 3 or 4 weeks later to find out what was going on with the investigation. He was number 354 on the investigation list. So that's where we are. And I think that something needs to be done. It sounds to me as if the police department and the rank and file are interested in doing this, but apparently at the top that is not being addressed. And I think that it's a situation where maybe resources are being misdirected. It seems as if we have police that are busy writing tickets for homeless people, and then they move 100 yards down the creek bottom and get another ticket 3 or 4 weeks later. We have apparently assigned a police officer to Beans Cafe. It seems a little ironic that people that aren't property tax paying people have police officers assigned to provide them services, but those of us that are can't get anyone to respond to an incident. So that is a little bit disturbing. We also have 2 officers at the high schools that maybe that's something that could be handled with 1. I think that we're a little bit handicapped in that we have Bill Popp out here trying to promote economic development in this city, And you know, as you know, it's difficult because of the high cost of living here and because we're geographically isolated to some extent. But like you know, we live in the most violent city in the most violent state in the country, and we don't have someone who's investigating property crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am?
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Pease. I had a couple questions for the police chief. Chief Dahl, if you have a minute. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is being done right now with regard to property crime within APD?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, thank you for asking. You know, we heard some recent testimony, and there are a number of things that I heard that I think maybe there's some misinformation floating around, but we do actually have detectives assigned to property crimes. I'd love to have more detectives assigned to property crimes. I think we're going to do that in 2018, but we do have people doing that. We also have patrol officers that respond to property crimes as well, obviously on a daily basis, and do that follow-up. I'll be perfectly honest with you, something the police department's not always great about is closing that loop after we go and we make contact with the original complainant, or in this case, collect evidence. You know, letting the original complainant know what the status of the case is, that's something we're working to improve. But we do actively have detectives assigned to property crimes in general, also burglary, fraud, that type of stuff.
Sure. And can I ask if you know, are you seeing a general trend with the people that you are catching that are committing property crimes? Are you seeing basically frequent flyers, a lot of the same faces?
We do see, and this is nothing new in police work, but we do tend to see the same people over and over again. Typically, you know, you have a very small segment of the population that's involved in criminal activity, and I know there's been a lot of focus on that recently, and some of those changes didn't help, but some of them that came through SB 54, some of the fixes after SB 91 corrected some of that, but just in general in law enforcement, you tend to see the same faces over and over again.
So since you brought it up, I'll ask, what specifically did we see fixed? Have you noticed an impact with SB 54?
Well, a lot of those changes took effect January 1st, so I don't know that we can say we've seen, that I have a lot of data to show that there's been an impact. What I'm hearing from officers on the street sort of anecdotally is that having the ability to have some discretion in some of those first contacts, being able to make an arrest for somebody's first felony instead of seeing them released, those kinds of things are helpful. Part of what also changed as a result, I think, or at least at the same time, was some changes to the bail schedule. So, for example, now when somebody's arrested on a felony, they go to jail, and then they're not considered for release until arraignment at the earliest. So they spend, you know, some overnight time in jail, and that can have a chilling effect on their behavior at times.
So just to follow up on that, because I do want to make this comment, because Mr. Peace is in the audience and he's come this far. I think this is a fundamental issue. KTVA highlighted somebody who was arrested for 6 burglaries on Friday. And so Friday was the 2nd, right? As of Monday, he was already out of jail. That was 6 burglaries, so that's significant. I personally have spent many hours at the courthouse this last week and pulling files and looking. And you recently, your officers recently, hats off to them. They caught somebody who stole a Porsche within 6 hours, and hats off to the dog too, by the way. And that particular person the case was closed, and they were basically sentenced to 2 years of probation, no active jail time. So again, I think it's really important for us to keep this line of communication open with the police department, and for you guys to tell us if you are seeing this, because it gives us the opportunity to relay to our legislators what exactly Anchorage Police Department is dealing with, because we can put 1,000 police officers on the street, and if you pick somebody up for burglarizing 6 businesses in a course of a week, and then they're out on the street 3 days later, what's the chance they're really going to stop that behavior? So it's really important for us to know, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. How many detectives do you have working on property crimes? Is it a specific number, or do they kind of float?
There is a specific number assigned back there, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think there are 4 in property crimes, and I think there are 2 in sort of fraud financial crimes. And I'm trying to remember if there's another section in there that has some. I will say that we would like to have more back there. Part of the plan for 2018, as I've mentioned multiple times, and in fact, recently we just went over with the Public Safety Committee in meeting, was sort of some of our plans for rolling out the staffing that is in the pipeline at APD. Property crimes is definitely one of them, and assigning detectives to work in the property crime section in the detective division. In addition to that, having more officers in the patrol division means that cases that might not normally be assigned to a detective just due to sort of triage standards can be worked by patrol officers because they actually have the time to do it. So a vehicle break-in is a great example of something that maybe wouldn't rise to the level of a detective assignment, but a patrol officer could collect video, take a look at it, and ultimately maybe work that case.
Can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chairman? So this body and the mayor together have very consciously and aggressively invested in the police department over the last 2 years and tried to raise the numbers. I think we went from 350 to now we're at, was it 435?
About 435 today, yes, sir.
And how has that impacted your ability to respond to property crimes specifically?
Well, I think it's greatly impacted our ability. I mean, we have a tremendous number of additional people available to do work. I mean, any workload is obviously easier the more people you divide it amongst. And specifically, when you talk about a police department, that starts giving us some expanded capacity to do things. Responding to property crime is a great example where an officer might, if you just barely have enough people to keep up with emergency calls for service, an officer might respond to a call for service, resolve that to their best of their ability to make sure it's no longer an emergency and move on and never be able to loop back and do any kind of follow-up on it. A vehicle break-in is a great example of that, where you might go, you take the report, if there's some kind of evidence like video, you put that into property and evidence, and then you never have time to circle back and look at it. And if you have more officers available, then you have time to look at the video, maybe contact the complainant, figure out what's going on. And ultimately, if you have a case like that and, for example, the video is not legible, there's no way to identify the people in it, then at least you can have that contact with the original victim and explain the status of the case to them so they at least have an understanding of exactly what happened and what it was the police department did on their case.
Just one last, but that all being said, would you agree with Mr. Pease that we have a serious problem with property crime in Anchorage?
Well, I think we've talked about that a lot, that we've seen increase in property crime in a couple of categories. Stolen vehicles, one of them. We've had a lot of discussions about that, and general property crime as well. We're starting to shift a lot of our focus to some of those things. One of the things that we've done recently is have the investigative support unit work with local businesses on retail theft. Retail theft's a serious problem not only for local businesses and helping them manage their business and not have product walk out the door, but frequently, and I'm sure it won't surprise anyone, the people that are involved in retail theft are also breaking into cars and stealing things, from neighborhoods and so forth. So that gives us a place where we can really have a concentrated effort and make a difference dealing with those particular people. So again, that all comes back to having that capacity to do work, and that's a direct result of having more people at the police department.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wilton, sir.
All right, just a couple things. Since you mentioned the officers in the stores, I would mention that people who don't know that APD has a great cooperative relationship with loss prevention professionals in the big stores and little stores through the Anchorage Organized Retail Crime Association. So I was really glad to see officers in there working with those stores. I know they share a lot of information, and they do see, the people at Fred Mars and Walmart and cars, they know these repeat offenders. It's amazing. They know who they are, who they work with, what they're driving. They share it with APD, and they can build cases. It's tremendous to watch that happen. And also, just for people who are watching, this conversation could go on for hours, and in fact it does monthly. We have public safety committee meetings that we're all members of, and these are questions that we ask all the time. I think Mr. Pease just highlighted them. We're aware of these things, and we're working on them, and that's why so much of our money and resources are going towards building up the police force. It's extremely important. So thank you, David, and Chief Dahl.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Constant, sir.
Thank you. And Chief, one of the comments that Mr. Pease made was about how we're providing homeless people police service. Now, my understanding is that that area of our town is the highest concentration of criminal activity in the city. That's the hottest grid. That area, if you look at the grids all over the city, can you help share with the public the rationale for having a dedicated police force, the mobile team down there?
Through the chair to Mr. Constant, yes. It's not a surprise that in areas of town where there are a higher density of people, there's a higher density of criminal activity. Specifically with the campus at Brother Francis and Beans, there have been a lot of problems that have been discussed at great length over the last year or so. And we've been working, the community policing team has been working really hard with the administrators of both facilities to lessen the impact on the surrounding neighborhood. I don't think that it's correct to categorize it as having a police officer that's assigned there, but we have had a tremendous amount of activity down there, and it's as a direct result of feedback from the community about the problems that were happening and spilling over into adjacent neighborhoods. My understanding from talking to the patrol shifts and the community policing team recently is that all of the work that's been done there is starting to have an effect and that those problems have been lessened.
Just a quick follow-up then. So just basic logic then, if we reduce the calls by 30% at that area for your response officers, just 911 calls, what do those officers, are they able to do if they're not there?
Well, sure. I think you make a good point. If we can have an effect there and we're not spending as much time, then that frees up officers to do the things that the community is giving us feedback on, which is patrolling neighborhoods, spending time in parks and trails, spending time in public areas like malls, things like that, or following up on some of the property crimes or other lower level crimes that are still important to sort of the health and safety of a community that maybe we might not otherwise have an opportunity to address.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all, Chief. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Could you have somebody get with David Pease and find out what the status on his case is?
Yeah, I actually looked into that tonight, so I can talk to him before I leave.
If you would. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We're now down to the next part of our agenda. It's after 6 o'clock, I think. What time is it? 6:01. Good. We're in good shape. 6:01. We're now on item 14A. 14A is Resolution AR 2018-62, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly.
Mr. Chair, quick point of order.
Go ahead, sir.
I don't know if it matters, but our vote system shows the time being 5:48. And so obviously it's 6 o'clock, but
She said 6 o'clock. Madam Clerk?
I just want you to know that it's not accurate. So the tags electronically might not actually sync up to the clock.
She says it's not time stamping correctly, but it is 6:01. Again, we're on resolution 14A, resolution AR 2018-62, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and special land use permit as a marijuana cultivation facility and license number M12808.
Waive reading.
Thank you. Doing business as Tundra Jane. Public hearing on this item is open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. J.J.M. Curry for the record. Spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. You'll have 3 minutes. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Wilton, sir.
The Community and Economic Development Committee met and discussed this at length this last Thursday, March 1st, and recommends approval. This is also in a building where there's already this is a cultivation operation in a building. There's already retail and manufacturing that we've approved previously.
Okay. Other comments from Assembly members? Please bring up the vote, Madam Clerk. Please vote. That is approved. The vote is 9-1. Next item in first item 14B. Item 14B is Resolution AR 2018-63, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving alcohol special land use permit for retail sales of alcohol with distillery license number 5613 for Alaska Spirits LLC, doing business as Alaska Proof in the I-1. Thank you. Public hearing on this item is now open. They may wish to testify. Please come forward. J.J.M. Curry for the record. Spell your last name, if you would, please. Anyone at all? On this item, sir. Hearing and saying none, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from assembly members. Please bring it up, Madam Clerk. Please vote. Mr. Constant, we need your vote, sir. That is approved. The vote is 10-0. We're now down to special orders. There are none. We're now down to 16. There is none. We're now down to item 17, audience participation. Is there anybody that would like to address the summit any item not on today's agenda? You'll have 3 minutes. J.H.M. Curry, for the record, spell your last name.
Where were the debaters?
Anyone at all? Welcome to the meeting.
Legal name is Brian Witzke, preferably Brianna. As the state has granted me the privilege to have FEMA on my cursor, and we have the up-and-coming bill, Prop 1, that's being voted on. I'd like to know what
Pull the microphone a little closer to you.
I would like to know what the city has in stall, or if it does go as a yes vote, to ensure safety amongst our citizens that are transgender, myself included. Back in '99, I was in the wrong about a domestic violence. We all learn, we all move forward, and one thing that was pointed to me was whenever we put anybody in fear, that it is domestic violence and it does lead to other things. With this bill, if it does pass in the opposite direction of a no vote, what does the city have in response to be able to make sure that I'm not put in fear? As now listed as a woman in the city, I'm already in fear every day. And that I don't bother the city for any of that because it is part of my life. But when you move into the aspect of creating fear by allowing a proposition or a law to even be considered, what do you guys have to institute our safety? And safety for like-minded people like me, when already on the books, we aren't even really protected. So I don't know what the city would have as far as seeing how we're already struggling with a budget, and we're struggling with police force and help. What would you guys have to offer for us if this does go the other way? It scares me. It is a concern of mine, not only for me, but also my fellow citizens that are a part of me, as well as not a part of me, that are just family-related people. When you open up, grounds that the police are not going to be there to enforce the law, and that you leave it to the average citizen that can be able to constitute enforcing a law, why is this even an issue that we are able to look at? Begs the question. I understand that they did it right by the signatures, but what does the city have to answer for that?
Questions from assembly members? To the administration, can anybody over there answer lady's question?
Through the chair, we'll certainly be taking a hard look at that when we see the results of the election. We have already indicated in some public comments that we are not sure exactly how the police department or any other municipal agency would go about enforcing Prop 1 were it to pass, but it is a bridge that we will cross if we need to cross it.
Mr. Dunbar, sir.
I guess maybe I'm asking you to do something too speculative, Mr. Falsey, but were it to pass, do you think it would result in the city being sued?
Through the chair, I do not know.
Thank you.
Is anybody with cab fare, in this case Uber fare or Lyft, and such a direction can file suit? All they've got to do is get to the courthouse. Happens all the time. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I would just offer that most of us don't believe and don't want this to be before the voters, and at least on this body, I would say, that I have done what I can and will continue to do until the day of the election to do what's right. And I'm here for you, and I will continue to be here for you when the question comes up, how we provide equal protection under the law.
There are no other assembly comments. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the assembly, and thank you for your comments, sir.
Anybody else wish to address this amendment, any issue, please come forward. Look at the meeting.
My name is Mahogany Magnetic, Mohagani, last name Magnetek. Pronounced Mahogany Magnetic. And I brought with you all my birth certificate, because I want to show and talk about how asinine it is to walk around with your birth certificate all day long. There we go. So, if only for a minute, let Magnetic drop it and spin it. Now, check out this predicament. Sally couldn't find her birth certificate. In closets, buried under drawers and hidden under papers because haters got away with it other capers. Now, Sally is a lady that naturally grows a beard. Folks give her a hard time acting all kinds of weird. Standing outside the ladies' room, gender police not checking and just assume all is good until they come across Sally. Hey, sir, mister, hey, man, stop, where's your ID? When the police turns his head, she rushes by instead to find an empty stall to do number one before the popo fires his taser gun. Now, Sally is twitching, all of her humanity is missing. So don't act like you don't care if the city's in chaos, mayhem, or despair. Discriminated, can't pee or poop anywhere. Without your birth certificate, it just ain't fair. Justice under threat everywhere. Anchorage, let's vote to stop injustice right here. Now, take, for instance, the city softball game. Supposedly, everyone can play ball all the same. It's a good time, it's a joyous occasion, but the gender police can't take a vacation. Now, the mayor's on the mound winding up, but it all goes down. And his tummy is bubbling. The entire crowd can see him struggling to get to the porta potty, but the gender police requested his ID. Said he was acting like a witch, told him to take a dump in a ditch. Now tell me, what's the mayor to do? Well, in this rhyme, he did number two. All down his pants, they had to call hazmat, probably wishing they could take that vote back. So don't act like you don't care if the city's in chaos, mayhem, or despair. Discriminated, can't pee or poop anywhere. Without your birth certificate, it just ain't fair. Justice under threat everywhere. Anchorage, let's vote to stop injustice right here. Now, out of 500,000 registered voters, maybe 10,000, I say in total, care about trans rights and will stand up. The other 490K just don't want to cuss. About transgender people, so what's the fuss? Well, it's about justice and discrimination. If one group of people must present identification, a legal document that can't be laminated, what if somehow Pete gets on it and spray it? Then there's the question of all your private info. It's not like the identity thief isn't knocking on the door. Do we really want to be like North Kakalaki or low down dirty shame, outright and tacky, losing revenue, straight up no tourist attraction, giving haters and transphobes the satisfaction of being asinine and small-minded, an entire place where all the citizens are blinded. If Prop 1 goes through, well, that's strike number 3. I tell you, there's no moving mahogany. I sure as hell ain't walking around with my birth certificate. If they pull me off the toilet, that's going to be some shit.
Mahogany, your time is up.
That's all I need.
First, let me members. Mr. Constant. Now I know we took the water with you.
So I just moved, and my birth certificate is in a box somewhere buried in a garage. And I literally today had to go to the county clerk of Santa Barbara County on their website to try to figure out how to get another birth certificate. And I thought, how in the hell is this going to work? It's not going to work. It's not right.
Yeah, it's not going to work for a mother or for a father with 4 and 5 children lying up at the mall trying to go pee and poop or whatever, and everybody needs their birth certificate. You know, in this rhyme, I use the mayor as a metaphor for an everyday citizen. That can be anybody. And gender is fluid. You can't tell by looking at somebody what's in their pants. Thus, you're going to have this gender police who's unenforceable or whatever, sit there and like inspect people's underpants or whatever and their birth certificates to see who can use what bathroom. It just don't make any sense. If any of the opponents or whatever, you know, if you want to come up with something better, I suggest you go to the drawing board and come up with something better other than this birth certificate thing. You know, if you really want to be that vindictive.
There are no other questions. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah, it's been a good time. Peace. I love you.
Anybody else wish to address this semi-committee item?
Hopefully this will also be a wrap, Mr. Kendall.
Well,
Iambic pentameter.
I'm not sure I know where to start, but I'm going to try.
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Well, I think I know the routine. It's spread 'em, I think, right? Let's see. First of all, my name is Paul D. Kendall. I'm a mayoral candidate. And what you have before you is my 5 positions. I'm mostly known for moving the capital here within 30 days or else. And I want all of our dividends back with accrued interest or else. But in addition to that, I am going to vote yes on Prop 1. And I don't want to get into it. I just think it's an individual moral decision. Now, the reason I'm here tonight is this. I proposed to the mayor, this Mr. Berkowitz here, the illustrious Mr. Berkowitz, that we take the Marston Theater and we take 2 days and we camera it up and high-def screens, some electronic whiteboards, and some microphones, and we allow the public to come in for 2 days straight and query and interrogate and challenge and probe and insinuate to the candidates. We need a new way to do business. And Mr. Constance was so nice to me, so gracious to let me rant on him, I think for 20 hours or something out there last night, that I felt I have to stop asking you people to do the bidding for me. So I would come down here tonight and plead with you. We need a new beginning, ladies and gentlemen. We are the capital. Juneau is a fake capital. There's nothing there. It's injurious. We all know that. It's time that Anchorage matured and grew up. We are the state also. So I'm asking you to set aside 2 days in the Marston Theater. We'll get some sponsors. What's happening is we're getting out, I don't know if I need to justify this or not. I don't know whether to outline or not. What we need is multiple mics, multiple cameras with split-screen TVs. We need to invite in all of our multimedia people. And we need to have long, engaging discussions. We don't need pretty moderators. We could do with the guy at Crash and the other guy there, I forget his name now, at Kenai Radio. Anyway, the point is we can get some sponsors because these various groups invite us out as candidates, but they give us popcorn moments, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, or I'm going to challenge Mr. Berkowitz and they inform me I have to be a nice person. We're never going to get together if we continue to have this lacking of communication. You as a body here tonight can set the precedents. You tonight can say, hey, we have to, the way we engage our elected officials has to be different. And each one of these groups, and I got a slew of them, they can actually take a block of time and perhaps contribute to that, or we can, you should be able to ask a question, insinuate whatever your motive is, freedom of speech, totally freedom of speech. Go get a slice of pizza, come back in 5 minutes and re-interrogate or re-insinuate. And there's no excuse for us not doing that. And we're solely lacking it. And you tonight, you have a chance to begin this moment. If you do not, and I get elected, believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go someplace we're never going to forget because I'm not going to reconstruct you folks, but representing 300,000 people and 240 registered electorates, I guarantee you we're going to go someplace very, very special very quickly. So,
Thank you, Mr. Kendall. There are no questions.
Thank you. And I think for the first time in my life I thought about actually getting up and leaving because I'd never thought I would be served past or something. But anyway, thank you very much. Right?
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the same item, please come forward. Seeing none, this portion is closed. We're now down to executive sessions. There are none. Now down to assembly comments. Mr. Dyson, sir, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, thank you. I've had a couple things I wanted to say for a long time, but back in January, we recognized Martin Luther King's birthday. It happens to be within a day of mine. It's pretty easy to remember. And I listened again to it, I Have a Dream speech, and it made me think about what's my dream for this city? And I've scratched out notes on that quite a bit. When we assume this job, you can come here and just do a good job with the items that appear before us, and that's good, and we can be advocates for our constituents, and that's very important. But I got thinking about what do I want, how do I want our city to be better or different at the end of my time sitting here? What do I dream about? And So I've had some thoughts, but anyways, I would encourage all of you who are interested and have a vision for our town to think about that. And I'd like to have a kind of a further conversation, and I may share with you the things I've come up with. A few buzzwords start out that be probably paragraph heads, but certainly freedom and liberty, safety and opportunity, being civil and respectful and welcoming, and quality of life issues. So I just encourage you all to think about that. And if any of you are interested, I'd be quite surprised if we don't find some things that we dream of and long for and aspire to that are in common, and we might find common cause to work on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dyson. Ms. Nabowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't often speak unless I have something specific I want to get across, and tonight is one of those nights. It's kind of fun when we get to see people outside of our everyday assembly context. And today, I want to introduce you all to my son, Riley, who is sitting in the audience right there. I got the opportunity today. He had to take 2 hours, or go down to the courthouse for 2 hours and watch court proceedings. Now, we've done it with community councils. We always have the kids that come here. I didn't realize that was a portion. And I bring it up because I think as part of our public safety committee, it would be very fascinating to have the municipal prosecutor who works within the CRP court to come and explain to the assembly. I've been on the body for 5 years, and I did not, and I have a justice degree, which I'm ashamed to admit. I did not know this diversionary program existed within the state of Alaska. But I thought the municipal attorney who was there did a fabulous job, but it really was a different part of the Alaska judicial system that I had the opportunity to experience tonight while we were sitting there getting his government credits. And it really is a court that deals with mental health care and substance abuse, those people that are in that program. It can be a very long-term program, but the probation officers, the prosecutors, both on the state and the municipal level, really work with people who have issues that would not be well addressed in the traditional judicial system. And I thought it was something fascinating that I would love, I know Eric's not here tonight, but I would love to have a presentation at the Public Safety Committee. And on that note, that was my whole point, but I do also want to just share with the body that my son Riley joined the Air Force a couple weeks ago. So he'll be graduating from Chugach High School this year, and he goes to MEPS actually this week, and he does his processing. So I'm a very proud mom.
You should be, ma'am. Rather good choice. Mr. Constant.
Yeah, thank you. So last night I was here for the town hall. It went on quite a long time. And somebody was here, the municipal clerk. And afterwards, we had a nice chance to catch up. And she kind of explained to me the slings and arrows of what's happening right now in the process of going to vote by mail. And while we sit here comfortably knowing that it's going to work, you know, the clerk's office and their team is working diligently right now in a way that we can't even imagine, because what people don't really realize is that the last opportunity to change the ballot and make any amendments and to make sure that the electronic system works and captures the information and the whole system functions is really this week, today, tomorrow, the next day, because the materials then have to leave our hands and go to the printer. And then they have to get mailed on Tuesday. And there's no stopping that wheel. That wheel must turn. And so I last night really felt a lot of kind of compassion and pride in the work that the folks in the elections office are doing right now, because it is unfathomable the pressure that they are under, because we are transforming how we do elections, and it is happening right now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Peterson, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And believe it or not, I was going to talk about vote by mail myself, so he kind of stole my thunder, so I'll pass to Mr. Dunbar.
Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No comment this evening.
Ms. France, ma'am. Mr. Steele, sir. Mr. Rivera, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comment.
Mr. Wilson, sir.
Briefly, I had when I was a kid, and maybe most of you too, when we had drills, it was to crawl under our desk in case there was a nuclear attack, and it was a little puzzling to us, but we
It was
did it.
Tommy Turtle time.
So now we do it a little different, and I went by East High when they had a live shooter drill. And what made this one particularly unique, I guess it's done all over the city, but this one was unique because one of the SROs went through and shot blanks as he walked through the school, and they announced where the shooter was as he walked through. So initially they barricaded their rooms, but as they found out, okay, the shooter's going to one end of the school, people on the other end unbarricaded and bolted out the doors. And by the end, is probably 4 minutes, 2/3 had evacuated the school, and at the end where the shooter was, they're still barricaded in their rooms. But it was interesting. I mean, it seemed like it was fairly effective. I think having the sound of the gun had to really heighten the reality of it for everybody. But it wasn't particularly frightening. They knew what was coming, and it wasn't real. Another thing is, going into the schools, and in this case, and also I went to schools in February, which was Visit Your Schools month. But it felt really good in there. The school looked super nice. It was very, very clean. And before this drill, the students passing in the halls to go to their next classes, it just felt good. Everybody was happy. I didn't see disruption or anything. They knew where they were going. It's very efficient. It just felt good being in that school. So I think it's valuable to go see these schools and get the picture we don't always hear about anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll take a motion to adjourn in a second, if you would, please.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thanks for being here.
John, I was going to say, that's the school.